In this video, I'll go over why I think Ethereum and the altcoin market has topped. I'll lay out my bear case and I'll tell you how I'm positioned in the coming weeks and months. This is the agenda for the video, so let's not waste any time. So why do I think we've topped? We saw the largest liquidation event in crypto last week with over $19 billion wiped from the ecosystem. I've heard a lot of arguments for why this is bullish, right? It's like, oh, like leverage is wiped from the ecosystem. That's really good. Oh, the degens lost all their money. That's really good. I think these arguments are mostly cope and it's very, very complacent. I personally can't really think of an argument for why crypto natives losing a lot of money is good for crypto native altcoins. Especially, this cycle we've seen that there really isn't that much new capital coming into the space. And if there is new capital, it's mostly an institutional bid for Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum and Solana. But also institutions can sell, if crypto natives lost all their money and, those are the types of people that's like buying altcoins, who's left to buy? I think that event shook a lot of confidence in the ecosystem that cannot be ignored. And my friends over at Tangent made this chart for me, which I think is really, really good for understanding different phases of the cycle. Phase one is the early bull, where there's some consolidation and accumulation, setting up for phase two, which is the wealth creation part, where things go parabolic. Phase three is when things start to slow down, momentum is slowing down, and there's some distribution, and at some point the sell pressure becomes too much, and we enter wealth destruction slash down, a choppy market. And then phase five is when longs get punished, traders get punished, and people start leaving crypto because everyone thinks it's over. You can kind of overlay this chart to what happened earlier this year. We had the wealth creation phase after the election when everyone was euphoric. Phase three of distribution, once good news couldn't really take us much higher. Then wealth destruction once Trump did the whole tariffs thing, and everyone thought it was over. And then there was like a few months of chop and lull, and we eventually hit new highs after that. But you can kind of think of that similar fractal to what we saw, like what we're seeing now, right? So there's a wealth creation event where Trump chickened out, right, from the tariff stuff, and we're gonna see new highs, right? Big beautiful bill is good, right? And then in the past few months, I think we've seen some distribution event where every new high just gets immediately sold into. I think right now we're part of the wealth destruction event in crypto. I don't really know how much lower these things can go. And I'm not really that bearish Bitcoin. It's more so I'm bearish altcoins because I think the holder base is just wrecked, right? And like the entire alt complex is cooked. And then maybe at some point Bitcoin is going to bottom and we're going to enter a chop slash lull phase. But I think in phase 4 and 5, altcoins just get omega wrecked. And I think the difference between this particular wealth destruction and the last few corrections we've had is this idea of the 4-year cycle. Now, I don't have a strong view on whether I believe in a 4-year cycle. I think Bitcoin is mostly decoupled from it. I think it's a macro asset, but I think altcoins are exposed to the 4-year cycle, and I'll give over my and I'll share my reasons why. I think a lot of people hold altcoins, whether it be Ethereum, Solana, or like whatever altcoin, knowing that most of these things are probably overvalued, but they hold it anyways because they believe in this magical Q4, like guaranteed Q4 pump. And my question is, if we don't get that, then what happens to those holders? Panic might set in. I believe, the price action we saw on October 10th is simply not something that happens in a raging bull market. Now, we can, blame perp dexes, or we can blame, people getting leveraged and like whatnot. But if we are in a raging bull market where we're going to hit 250K Bitcoin, 24K Ethereum, $1,000 Solana, I just don't think that type of liquidation event happens. I think something is wrong. And I don't really have a big edge in macro, but I do, over the years, I've observed like these types of events, and I do think that something is wrong, and I think warning, right, like yellow/red flags should be setting in inside your head, and there's like other like warning signals, right? It's like Metaplanet, right? Their MNAV, the DAT, right, is going below 1. MSTR, right? Bitcoin has hit new highs post tariffs, but MSTR really hasn't. So why is that? I don't know, right? I'm not like an expert when it comes to MicroStrategy or Metaplanet Ponzonomics, but something feels off, and I think capital preservation is going to be more important moving forward. And now let's move over to Ethereum, because I do think that for us to see alts recover, we have to see Ethereum hit new highs. But there's there's like so many problems with Ethereum, the asset, and the lack of conviction that the ETH holders have. Now, a few months ago, I mentioned that, yeah, like, once Ethereum hits new highs, it's time to start taking profits. I think a lot of people have this view, right? Ethereum is going to hit 5K, 6K in Q4, and then, we're all going to sell together, and then we're all going to ride off into the sunset. The problem is Ethereum did hit a new high, right? In, I believe, August. And because it was such a disappointing, break, it didn't even hit 5K, right? It just like went to like 4,900 and it's like immediately dumped, right? I think people are like not really, I guess thinking about that too critically. And I do think there's something wrong there. And I guess like the most important question that I have for you is like, maybe this applies to you, but like how many people do you know own Ethereum to sell into the Q4 pump past all-time highs, right? It's like, oh, this happened last time, so it's going to happen again. So yes, like Ethereum is like whatever. I don't really believe in the asset anymore, but hey, I'm going to long it because it always pumps in Q4, right? Like what percent of those people, right, lost faith in Ethereum, the asset, but still hold it anyways? I think quite a lot. So this is the Ethereum price chart, and it has been fairly disappointing this entire cycle, where yes, I mean in the past 4.5 years or so, price is basically flat, right? We've gone up a lot, we've gone down a lot mostly, but price is flat. But I ask you, like, what is your belief in Ethereum, the asset? Because in the grand scheme of things, Ethereum is still hovering around $4,000, right? 3,800. That's basically around $4,000, right? How much, like, I guess, belief and conviction do you have in Ethereum now relative to 2024, right? When we hit, 4K. 2021 when we hit 4K. I think that price is flat, but belief in this asset has come down, right? The overall aggregate, like average belief in Ethereum, the asset, has come down over the past 4.5 years, yet price is flat. And I do think this is a problem, because I mean 4 or 5 years ago, I really believed in 10K Ethereum. And over the years, I've seen so many problems with the asset, the community, etc., value crawl, whatever, the narrative, that I don't really believe in it anymore, at least in the short term. Yes, like maybe if fiat just keeps getting debased and, 10K Ethereum in like 2, 3, 4 years is the same as, 5K Ethereum now. But I do think that a lot of people are complacent because they just kind of like magically believe in this magical Q4 pump. That, I ask you, like, going back to this, there's a lot of people that hold Ethereum, right, for this guaranteed Q4 pump. What happens if we don't get it? Also, if everyone's planning to sell past 5K, who's left to buy at 5K? I have no idea. But I'm not even like that like bearish Ethereum, right? It's more so like this video is focused on Doomsday for altcoins, right? The altcoin bear market, which I guess maybe Ethereum could be part of it, but also I am a bull at heart. I do believe in Ethereum, I guess, like from like an ethos perspective, right? But I guess if we're here to make money or protect our capital, I do think that these bear cases should not be ignored. So obviously this is a screenshot from what we saw on October 10th. Things were down 10, 20, 30. I mean, insane amounts, right? Like things like this. I mean, people can't forget about this, right? Like I'm sure, if you were watching this, like you can't shake this like from your brain, right? You can't just move on and expect that everything's okay, right? Like this happened, like this actually happened. People got destroyed, right? And I just don't think this type of, I guess, like a move or a day was healthy. Like there's gonna be PTSD. People will simply not forget the severity of that dump. It revealed that altcoins have no bid, and these are things you can't really own. Yes, there are a few altcoins I am bullish on, and I think you're bullish on that, you can probably own for the next 4, 5, 6, like 10 years or whatever, right? But 99% of the alt complex, like, have no bid, right? We've seen it. Like, there is no bid. You can't hold these things. And I think, the more important part of like this video is a psychological shift across all the market participants. Let's say let's say you're super optimistic, right? And you thought that prior to the October 10th crash, you thought there was like a 10% chance that the market top isn't, because it's never zero, right? Like, if you're like a permeable, maybe you're like 10% sure that, or 10% confidence that the top isn't. I think following that crash, that those odds have to increase a little bit, right? I don't really think it's rational for anyone to be like, okay, like the October 10th crash happened, the odds of a market cycle top is lower now, right? I think it has to increase a little bit, right? Maybe it went from 10% to 20%. Maybe you're more cautious like me, for example. And maybe prior to the October 10th top, you thought the odds of a market cycle top was 30% or 40%, right? I think now, right, I'm following the October 10th crash, those odds have shot up to 50, 60%. So, obviously, right, that's just my opinion, but I think this is true, right, where if you just took like an average poll, right, across all market participants, after the crash, I think the odds of a cycle top, right, because crypto is like very psychological, right, has gone up. What that means is that if you are an insider, right, whether you're like an angel investor, a VC, or you work for these projects, you have to lock in these gains, right? Like you've been working so hard to build on like all these like random layer 2s with 0 users, random alt L1s with like 10 users, that you have to start selling, right? And these coins are vesting and unlocking for the next 2 to 4 years. It's very predatory that you just have to sell every vest. Even if you're like bullish your token or like whatever, right? People are going to sell, right? And it's going to be a rush for the exits. Just study most of these tokenomics, right? And I'm not going to single out any particular project because there's hundreds and thousands of these coins, but they all look like this, right? Where maybe they launched a few years ago and then over the next 1 to 4 or 5 years, tokens are unlocking. I ask you, who is going to buy Arbitrum, right? Who is a long-term investor in Arbitrum? It is a token that is meant to be dumped. I used to farm Arbitrum, right, to dump the token, and maybe I'll do that in the future as well. Sui, right, and Alt L1, people think it's the Solana of the cycle, and maybe that's true, right? Maybe in a few years it's going to be like trading at $20 or something. But look at the unlock schedule, right? It's unlocking. I mean, it's been unlocking, right? So like VCs and tokens already have, insiders already have tokens, right? Maybe they've been selling, or maybe they haven't sold. Why would anyone own these things? Athena, right? I mean, I love Athena, the product. I love Athena, the team. I think they're one of the strongest teams in all of crypto. But look at this chart, right? Like, look at these unlocks. Like, who's buying this? Like, why would I own this? It makes no sense. And it's the classic story in crypto where, yes, price, right? It's down bad already, right? How can it get any worse? But if you look at the market cap, I mean, Arbitrum investors, they're euphoric, right? Yes, price is down, but the market cap is flat, meaning that they can just keep selling. Right, Athena prices basically just lower highs and lower lows, right? Over the past year and a half or whatever. But market cap, investors are very, very happy. What do you think these people are going to do, right? And like I said, I am not singling out these projects. I'm just talking about these because I've heard bullish arguments for like all these coins. But I just don't see it, Maybe Athena is something I own in 2027, right? Once people have already sold. But until then, it's just not. Yeah, I just don't like it, right? Who's buying these? I can't really think of an answer. Actually, I know the answer. Like the people that bought these, right? They're the people that got liquidated on October 10th, right? So like, yeah, right? Like who's buying this now? I really don't see it. So yeah, my view is that, Bitcoin, I think could be fine, right? Because, it could be part of the gold trade or debasement, and it's like this institutional asset, multi-trillion-dollar asset. But I think my view, the more important view is that Ethereum might be cooked. Alt's definitely cooked. And I think people are a bit too complacent in, just like magically believing in this magical Q4 pump that has to happen. So let's talk about home position. So yeah, like I said, Bitcoin can grind higher, but the rest of the market has topped. And we're kind of gonna be in this like Bitcoin dominance meta, farming meta, where Bitcoin holders are gonna be fine, farmers are gonna be fine, but if you're just betting on like crazy upside alt season, you might be cooked. I've talked about this humble farmer portfolio that like last month. I do want to repeat it because I do think this strategy is still relevant. It could get a little outdated, especially because all these altcoins have gone down so much. But I've often argued, maybe you can't see some of the screenshots here, so let me just go back to here. So I think September, right? I was like, okay, I think everyone should just have this humble farmer portfolio where you have to own a healthy amount of stablecoins because there's so many risks to the markets, right? And no one can predict tops. Also, you can't be too bearish, right? You have to own some good coins, right, that you believe in, spot, and maybe that's stablecoins in spot, 30 to 60% of the portfolio. And also, I think one of the most asymmetric ways to make money in crypto is via airdrop farming. I think it's very, very hard to make money buying altcoins because they launch at such high valuations. And meme coins, yes, you can make money if you get lucky, but it's very PvP. The way I've made a lot of money over the past few years is literally just airdrop farming, right? Hyperliquid, right? Made a lot of money. Lighter, hopefully will do well. And I think that, I didn't farm plasma, but anyone that farmed plasma and didn't buy the token, like made a lot of money too. I think if the meta, right, is that all these coins launch at high FTVs. The meta, right, or what we should be doing is to farm these tokens so we can dump at those high FTVs, right? We shouldn't be buying them. We should be farming them so we can dump. And I think, Perplex is one of the better airdrop farms still, right? And I think the best way to farm these things is on the short side. And of course, I'm not going to always be short, right? I'm short right now. I've been short. But, I think it's one of the higher EV strategies to do. And this was how I was positioned, right? I would always have 50% at least in my portfolio of stablecoins. I have fully round tripped my mantle bags. My average was 161. I think we're lower than that. But it's a mid curve fundamental thesis, and it's hedging against my downside because I'm stabled up. I'm long some coins, and I'm hedging my mantle longs by shorting high FTV vaporware altcoins with positive funding on tokenless perplexes. And that's what I've been doing. Right, I shorted altcoins prior to the October 10th nuke, which did really well for me, and I re-shorted them this week, right, earlier this week. I thought, ETH wicked like 3,500, it pumped to like 41, 42. I think that was the complacency balance, and I think we are going to roll over. I don't think we're going to just go straight down, right? I think it's going to be kind of choppy, but that's my views, right? So this was October 10th. It was crazy, right? Crazy. And I bought, I covered, right? And then I re-shorted them. So this is my short basket now. So far I'm up at like 18K. So notice that I am shorting a basket of altcoins because I don't really have like a strong bear case on like any individual altcoin. I'm just like more bearish like the entire complex, right? So instead of like concentrating my shorts on one name, let me just short a basket because I just think all of these on average are going to go down. And as you can see, most of these things are paying me positive funding, right? People are paying me to short these things, which I think is a market inefficiency. So not only can I farm tokenless perplexes with the strategy, but I can also hedge my portfolio because I'm still like long spot coins. I'm also long crypto in the form of future airdrops. So this is a good way to not only give myself future upside in the form of airdrops, but also to protect myself from immediate downside. And honestly, if I get blown up on these shorts, then I trust myself to flip bullish. And I also trust that my future airdrops are going to be worth so much that I'm going to be fine if I lose money on these shorts. In fact, yes, I've been making money on these shorts, but like my portfolio is down overall, right? Because like my mantle bags are going down, my lighter points are losing value, etc. So it's simply a hedge. And I think it's funny because I bought the dip in USD AI last night, which is like this other stablecoin I've been farming. So it's like I feel like altcoins are just so cooked that the only dips I'm willing to buy is like in this stablecoin that's like trading above peg, right? And now it's like trading at like 102.5 or something, right? So it's like, yes, I made money buying this dip, right? It's like Taiki is literally buying dips on stablecoins trading above $1, right? It's like it went from 105 to 101, buy. It's at 102, yes, and I'm earning 30 to 40% APY. Hell yeah, right? Endpoints. So yeah, this is the environment we're in, right? I just can't buy these things anymore. And it is true that altcoins have already gone down so much. And realistically, like Ethereum and Bitcoin, they really haven't gone down that much, right? In the grand scheme of things. I think this is a really interesting quote, and I hope some people took this to heart when I posted this a couple weeks ago. But I think generally we act too quickly when we are trying to make money and too slowly when we are trying to protect our money. When you are pressed to make a decision, ask yourself, am I doing this to protect my money or to make more money? If the answer is to protect money, act more quickly. If the answer revolves around making more money, act slowly. And usually, right, one of my most fatal flaws as a crypto trader investor is usually I make good money on the upside, right? I feel like everyone does, right? It's like, okay, we buy these coins, they go up, yay, and we have this dream that they're going to 10x even more. But I always round trip, I never lose too much money because I have some risk management, but I always round trip. And, after like 2 or 3 round trips, you kind of have to internalize that. Like maybe I'm doing something wrong, right? Because yes, it is true that the pump is great, right? The dopamine rush is insane, but the immediate pain we feel after is just too much that I just told myself that I can't do this anymore, right? At some point, we just have to step away from the casino, and I'm at the point where if I were to be wrong, I'd rather be wrong and be sidelined by just protecting capital than to be max long and be wrong to the downside. Because if I'm bearish and I'm wrong, I'll just buy back higher, right? If Ethereum hits 5K plus, we're probably gonna see like crazy alt season where, I'm degenerate enough to probably make a lot of money on the other side. Whereas if I'm just max long now and we just nuke, right, keep nuking, then I could get like destroyed, right? I could be cooked, right? Because not only am I down like my portfolio, but I can't even, I don't even have like enough cash to buy the dip if there is a dip, you know. And there's like this quote, right, from Machi Big Brother. It's like the biggest skill will always be walking away from the casino. If you can't do it, it doesn't matter how much you've made. You'll always give it back. And Machi, right, he's a controversial figure, which is, why I don't, he is a controversial figure. And now like his wallet, right, he's just got liquidated again. He was up 40 million in profits to now over $13 million in losses. So yes, I mean, it's really easy to say stuff like this, but it's really, really hard to actually act on it. I have nothing against Machi, right? I really don't. But, I think, it is kind of ironic where in August 13th, he's like, the biggest skill is stepping away from the casino. And he's still in the casino. And it looks like, he's losing a lot of money. It's really, really hard to predict tops. No one can predict tops. It's only obvious in hindsight. And by the time that we know that the top is in, it's probably way too late, right? And that's why you have to practice good risk management. And also, like, stablecoin farming is very, very lucrative. Like, airdrop farming is very lucrative. Like, you don't have to take on that much risk to, give yourself a lot of upside in crypto. Of course, it's not an easy thing to do, it really isn't, because I think a lot of people in crypto, they want to just buy some coin and like wait like 2 months and then like sell it at 10x or something, right? And of course, like that sounds amazing. I wish I can do that. But it's not that simple. Crypto isn't easy anymore. I think, for us to make money in crypto, you have to work really hard, right? You have to find your edge. And I think my edge is in airdrop farming and also stablecoin farming. So I just need to keep pushing like that edge, right? Where, yes, like, if we do pump from here, like I'm not going to make that much money, right? Compared to the other regens, but I don't care, right? I'm positioned in a way where I make moderate money on the upside because I have, enough exposure, current and future exposure. But also if we do dump, right? And I'm wrong on, or if we have topped, then yes, I lose money, right? I'm losing money right now. It's not fun. But I do minimize losses. And I'm down a lot of money right now, right? But I'm grateful that, I learned my lessons, right? It took 3 round trips, like insane round trips for me to finally just say, enough is enough, right? I do want one more 2x, but you know what? Like, let me just take risk off the table and let's try to prioritize making money slowly instead of like trying to make all my money right now. And also, this is also another thing to at least consider. And I think, this is also why I think even farming might get pretty tough in the coming weeks and months. But, a lot of people are hurt. And I think a lot of people are kind of in this desperation mode to claw back losses from the market. So, they might be over trading or taking on more risks. But I also think that, generally in bear markets, what ends up happening is that there's going to be more rugs and scams because people are down a lot of money. And the only way, maybe not the only way, but some people are just going to choose to scam people to get their money back. I think in the coming weeks and months, we're going to see an increase in exploits, right? Where maybe some of those exploits are by insiders, right? It's like, oh no, our protocol got exploited for $20 million. It's North Korea, right? But it's going to be like some insider that knows there's like some bug, right? And then, they like take 20 mil and then maybe they give back 18 mil, right? As a bug bounty and then keep 2 mil or something. You never know, right? So, it's always best to panic first, right? Panic early, than to be the last one panicking. Right now, I'm farming USDI, as I said, right? I'm buying these stablecoins out of Peg, Lighter, and Variational as my perp dexes, and also Polymarket. I think Polymarket is the most interesting farm right now because, prediction markets, I think it's bear market resistant, right? I think there really isn't. I mean, there's a huge overlap of like between people that own crypto and people that use perp dexes, right? There's like an insane overlap. But I don't think there's as big of an overlap between people that own crypto and use prediction markets, meaning that even if crypto were to dump from here, I think prediction markets can still grow, right, as a whole. And people have often trolled me saying that the Poly Market token is not going to happen. But Shane Copeland, the founder of Poly Market, tweeted the Poly token ticker, and it sounds like they are going to do an airdrop. And I think that's my base case as well. They raised $2 billion at the $9 billion valuation, meaning that the token will probably launch at least a 10 bill market cap, right? Meaning that if they do a 10% airdrop, then that's $1 billion worth of wealth that gets created for anyone that's using Poly Market. The problem with Poly Market is that it's really hard to farm, right? You can't. It's not as simple as like depositing capital and be like, okay, stablecoin farm, right? You have to be somewhat active, but hey, in markets you get paid to do things you don't want to do, right? And Poly Market farming is hard, but I'm farming it, right? Prediction markets farming it. Farm good projects. Good projects will be worth a lot in the future, right? People say, oh, I'm not going to farm in the bear market because all these things are going to go to zero. Yes, if you're farming vaporware, they're going to go to zero. But if you're farming good things, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, Hyperliquid, right, came out of the bear market, like Q1 2023, right? I was farming Hyperliquid Q1 2023, like there's going to be good things to farm. You just have to be aware, but you can't really farm unless you're in the game, right? You have to ensure survival. So that's what I'm doing, right? I want to buy Bitcoin in the future, honestly. I really am bullish Bitcoin. And I have I have no idea why I have so little exposure to Bitcoin. I'm really greedy, so I'll probably buy Bitcoin at some point. Hopefully sub 100K. Selfishly, right? Because I have a lot of cash. But if not, right? Maybe I should buy higher, right? So like I said, strong opinions loosely held. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll happily buy higher. But if I am right, I think that the risks to the downside is a lot higher than risks to the upside. Is kind of my approach. And if that's my view, and maybe you don't agree with me or whatever, right? But that's like my view. I think it makes sense to go into capital preservation mode. I think a good rule of thumb, and this isn't perfect, right? But let's say you think there's a 30% chance that the top is in. Maybe it makes sense to have at least 30% of your portfolio in stablecoins. Like I said, it's not perfect, but maybe that's a good rule of thumb to have, right? If you think there's a 30% chance that the top is in, it makes no sense to be 100% long crypto, right? Unless you're just like, investing for like the next 5 years or so. But if you own altcoins that you don't really believe in just because Q4 pump guaranteed, right? Then I would revisit whatever theses that you have. It's okay to sell as price is going down, right? I think it's okay because what's important is not round tripping, right? Because I'm sure, right? Most of my I would expect most of my viewers to be at least second cyclers, or maybe they've round tripped a few times this cycle as well. It's really painful, right? And at some point, I think we have to learn to step away from the casino. We keep saying that, right? We keep saying that. Oh, one more 2x and I'll sell. But the one more 2x mentality is always what kills me, because everyone thinks that way, right? You have to be humble, right? You have to have humility. We can't predict the future. The only thing we can manage is downside, right? Take care of the downside and the upside will take care of itself. I truly believe that crypto gives you so many opportunities. I don't think that crypto is going to go away. If you expect crypto to grow over the next 10 years, just farm things, right? Just look out for good things, and then you'll make money, right? Maybe it doesn't mean that you make money, like crazy amounts of money, and retire in the next 6 months. But what if you can just make a lot of money and retire over the next 6 to 12 years, right? That's still a great outcome for a lot of people. So I think extend your time horizons for if you want to make money. But when it comes to protecting money, you have to act quickly. I don't want to FUD people, right? And look, I'm not even that bearish, right? It's not like I'm net short, I'm net long still. But I think these things are something. I wanted to make this video because I think I've observed a lot of people are very, very complacent, and I want people to think of what could go wrong, right? Because what could go wrong can go wrong, and consider different types of portfolio strategies such as farming, right? Maybe own good coins, short bad coins, right? But like also manage risk, right? All my shorts are 1x leverage and below. So thank you for watching. See you guys another time, and hopefully I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong and we are in a bull market, then I'll make a lot more money. But it really might be cooked. So thank you guys, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.